Well, good evening, everybody. Let me know if you can hear me. I am using a new microphone tonight, so please let me know if you can hear me, and I will go ahead and get started. All right, cool. Awesome. So if you guys hear any weird sounds out of this microphone, let me know. It's a new microphone, testing it out. So get your ears open and let me know. That'd be appreciated. So first and foremost, welcome to the stream. We do have a severe weather risk for tomorrow, and we're going to go over timing, conditional stuff. There's a lot of moving parts to this. We're going to go over and try and break this down as easy as possible. So starting with your SPC Outlook, your SPC Outlook is a level 1 out of 5 risk. It's called marginal, and that's going to extend from just south of Grand Rapids over toward Lansing over to Detroit. Okay, so Grand Rapids proper is not in it, but south of it, you are in that marginal. Lansing's included, Detroit's included, and then areas south to the border of Ohio and Indiana. So that is a marginal risk, and it does include all hazards. Let's go ahead and look at our individual risk areas. Here's your wind risk. Again, it's going to be kind of a little bit further south on what that marginal encompasses. And that's going to be for areas like South Haven, Kalamazoo, Jackson, Ann Arbor, and Detroit, just north of that 94 corridor for severe wind. Your hail risk is going to be a little bit higher up. That's why that marginal risk is up there a little bit further north. Not a significant difference with that, but still pretty close together there. But the hail risk does extend a little bit further north. And then also your tornado risk is also a little bit further south along and just north of that 94 corridor. This does include all hazards. All right. So if you're in that green area in particular, or around that, if you're really close to it, like maybe Pontiac, Lansing, Hastings, and South Haven, you guys should definitely be on alert for any shifts that could happen in future outlooks. This will be updated at 2 a.m., I believe, tonight. So we're going to have an update from the SPC at that point, and then also again at 9 a.m. and again at 12:30 tomorrow afternoon. So that is going to be your SPC outlook and your hazards. All hazards are possible, but this threat is conditional. Let's go ahead and break this down a bit further. So what I mean by conditional is there's a lot of moving parts to this forecast. It's not just we're expecting storms and then that's it, Well, let's go ahead and break this down. So looking at the west threat tonight over in Missouri and Iowa and Kansas and Oklahoma, those areas out there are your storms popping up out there. This is tonight, right around 9 p.m. our time, so about an hour and a half later, we're going to see storm development off to the west. That is expected to push and form into a squall line, as we see here, down here in Illinois. So this is tomorrow morning, right around the 8 a.m. time frame. So this particular squall line yesterday was looking like it was going to brush the very southern areas of Michigan, but latest trends are shifting that area south. So with that being said, we're going to run this through. We see it try to encompass the very far northern Indiana, maybe brushing very far southern Michigan there. And that's going to be right after your 10 a.m. to right around 2 p.m. time frame. And that is going to be a big question. Number one for us is is that going to be north or is it going to be south? If it's north, we may see a gusty wind or a hail threat develop in the morning hours tomorrow morning between 10 a.m. in the west side, clearing the state by around 2 to 3 p.m. in the east side. That is question number one. How far north is that going to be? Question number two then becomes, how does the atmosphere act behind this line? What I mean by that is when these morning showers and storms move their way through the area, it's going to dampen the atmosphere instability-wise, moisture. We're going to have to watch the observations very closely. So if we have a good surge of moisture and instability back behind this line for the afternoon and evening, at that point, we could get redevelopment of more showers and storms. Now, models right now are split on how far north this line goes for round one, and also split on how far north the environment, the good environment comes, because when these lines come through, they put down outflow boundaries a lot of times, which could stall or even shift the threat south of us. So another kind of caveat there to keep in mind. So it's going to be a really kind of watch and wait kind of day. If that warm front does move north into our area, at that point, it'd be about 4 p.m. to the evening time frame. It shouldn't be an overnight threat at all. It'd be like more so 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. around that time frame for the second round. And that is the round we're concerned about for all hazards with tornadoes, wind, and hail. And the big question with that round is, number one, is the atmosphere going to be good enough? And number two, is the warm front going to advance far enough north into Michigan? So I'll show you two model solutions with different variations. All right. So the HRRR does have development right behind that line here in northern Indiana. And it tries to bring something up here into southern Michigan just barely, but the strongest storms remain to the south. So this is number one. All right. If we go back to the NAM3, before I do that, I want to show you guys this. The HRRR model, the instability and how far north that warm front gets for the second round, it does look like we're going to be borderlining that better instability. There you go. I'll zoom in here so you guys can see this better. Your purples and blues there are your surface instability, and this is the border here of Ohio and Indiana. It's just barely brushing up into the state on this model. Move this forward a couple hours. It's basically right there on the border. It's a toss-up, really. This is one model solution. Let's look at the NAM solution on this. The NAM is a little bit more aggressive with the, I think, northward extent of this. It has a very similar picture here with round one in the early morning hours. It could be raining also and storming earlier than the 10 a.m. time frame. So keep that in mind too. But the main threat for severe we're concerned about comes after 10 a.m. for round one. There's your squall line out in Illinois. This is going to be, again, Thursday at 9 a.m., pushing into the state. A little bit slower than the HRRR, but that reaches the state right around early afternoon, right around the 2 p.m. time frame. I think it's a little bit too slow, but what that does, though, is behind the dying line of storms, we have development here on the NAM model all across southern Michigan. Like, there we go. Let's go ahead and zoom that in. This is going to be at 9 p.m. tomorrow, so a little bit slower on the timing with this model, but it still brings it a little bit further north, all the way into that risk area that we see from the SPC. So we have two different models giving us two different solutions. It's going to be a toss-up. We're going to have to monitor the observations really closely tomorrow. It's not going to be known how we're going to interact with this environment until tomorrow. All we can really do at this point is give you both solutions and just kind of let you guys know we do have a risk, but it's very conditional on that atmosphere coming back into play for the afternoon and evening threat. Now, again, the tornado risk is going to be highly dependent, and also the wind risk really for that second round is going to be highly dependent on how far north that environment gets in the second round. With that being said, let's go ahead and look at our surface-based instability for this model, and then I'll take some questions for you guys. This is your surface-based instability. Again, your purples are going to be your instability. And again, just barely brushing up there later in the evening, tomorrow evening, into the southern portions of Michigan, so like 94 south. But here's what I also want to point out there. Our most unstable cape is actually going to be up above in the atmosphere. So we're actually going to have some pretty good instability in the upper levels of the atmosphere. There you go. That's going to be your like mixed layer, we call it, your mixed layer cape, which could support some hail. Even though that warm front stays southwest, we do have a good amount of instability all the way up to that 96 corridor there to support a hail threat, which is also why you see the hail threat a little bit further north on the SPC Outlook. With that being said, I will take some questions from you guys. We do not expect this to be a huge threat. This threat may actually not materialize much at all if everything goes, well. Hopefully we don't have to cover any severe weather, but if we do, we will be here at MSC to do that. So with that, I'll take some questions. Appreciate you, Red Dozer, for the donation. Constantine is in this threat. Yes. Owasso is in the threat. Yes, this is going to be for tomorrow, Shelby. This is Thursday. 2 rounds, morning round, right around that 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. time frame. And then also a secondary threat conditional on if the environment can come back and recover itself from the morning storms. Any questions, guys? The first round is more so a concern for hail and maybe some gusty winds. I'm not concerned at all for a tornado risk with that. Although I will say this, if the NAM model is right with the slower timing of the squall line, we may have to adjust our thinking on this, because if that comes in slower, we may have more time to destabilize, say if it arrives at 10 a.m. versus 2 p.m. That's a 4-hour difference, so we could have some higher instability totals in the state. So we have to keep an eye on that. But right now, we think it's going to move through earlier in the morning, which is going to dampen the instability just enough to make it more so a hail threat and not a concern for wind or tornadoes. Emily, there's likely going to be storms in the area. The one we're going to be watching, though, is that line that's going to arrive at 10 a.m. or so. If we go back to the model here and we look at the overall radar for tomorrow morning, we're going to see some showers and storms developing probably as soon as like tonight, really. But the coverage is going to increase into the morning hours. Like, here we go. This is going to be 3 a.m. We're already seeing an increase of showers and storms there. These are not going to be severe. There's going to be some rain, probably some good lightning, maybe some small hail, but nothing severe with these storms are expected until tomorrow morning, which we may get a few isolated severe storms, particularly in that southern part of the state there. Your heaviest will be right around that 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. time frame. Yeah, so you guys hear thunder overnight. Just kind of know maybe some small hail with those, but no overall severe threat. After 4 p.m., Veronica, for a second round, if we get a second round. How far south does this reach? Your SPC Day 2 outlook is right here. You have actually enhanced risk down there in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. But overall, we're on the northern fringe. We're on the warm front of this. So we're in the lower threat. But again, it's still a threat. So we'll be communicating that. Temperatures tomorrow are going to be pretty much the same, repeated today. Although if we don't get much in the way of breaks in the rain, it could be a little bit cooler than we expect. But overall, your temperatures are going to be pretty much in the mid 60s, I'm going to assume, again, for a good portion of the day. Here's your temperature graph for tomorrow. There we go. Where that warm front is, looks like going to be probably high 40s up there in central Michigan. But if you're north of that front or south of that front, you look like you're going to be pretty much directly within that 50 to upper 50s, low 60s zone. SPC stands for Storm Prediction Center. They are stationed out in Oklahoma, and they issue the SPC, this risk, basically. We call it the Convective Outlook, comes out 5 times each day, and it goes out for 8 days. They're the official government source for this information, and that's where all the graphics come from. It's possible, Bridget. We'll have more updates on that. A lot of people are talking about major snow at the end of the month. I don't see that either just yet, but it bears watching because the end of March definitely looks a little bit cooler. Just a big question of how long and how cold. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, though, honestly. Any high wind potential with the afternoon system? Look at our wind gusts here. We actually have that model pulled up. Looking at our wind gusts through the afternoon tomorrow, not really much anything, to be honest with you. This system doesn't really have favorable, like, low-level jet, so to speak, that carries moisture from the Gulf. Just one of the things that kind of keep this down threat-wise is because if we look at our broad synoptic pattern of this on a large-scale basis, we're going to see a big majority of our moisture and our look at this real quick. There we go. Look at our moisture from the Gulf of Mexico here. It looks like it does surge up into the area, but it doesn't surge very much at all. Looking at our like low-level wind speeds and stuff like that, the jet stream is pretty much broken. Like this doesn't scream moisture transport or also gusty winds to me. It does kind of kick up later in the day on Thursday into Thursday night, which is why we're concerned. We see a big we call it LLJ there, low-level jet kind of increase there, but overall not concerned about winds there. We're just not really looking at a big favorable dynamic for it. Cold water is going to be in the risk for both systems if these systems do materialize. Not thinking the risk is going to go higher. I don't think we're going to see an upgrade unless we see a couple things happen tomorrow, like morning, afternoon. If we get that recovery behind the squall line, I could see an upgrade at 4 p.m. at the 4 p.m. outlook tomorrow. Otherwise, I don't really. My gut instinct says no. Do we know how on track this winter has been in terms of the Farmer's Almanac prediction? The Farmer's Almanac predicted a cold and snowy winter for us. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it got pretty much the entire U.S. wrong as well. So, yeah, Flint is not in this threat at all for right now. Paw Paw is in the threat, though. It's possible, Caden. If we have more confidence where that warm front may not shift as far north, we could see an upgrade or not an upgrade, downgrade with that marginal kind of slide to the south there. It's possible, but given that we do have a good amount of what we call MU, most unstable cape, I would expect there to be at least a hail risk up to that point. Where was it at? Find it again. There we go. Your most unstable cape is going to be pretty much up to that 96 corridor there. So if you're in that purple area, anywhere from Grand Rapids to Flint and South, hail risk for sure. But overall, I could see that being shifted south, for a tornado and wind risk for sure. There is some concern, Tina. I'm not trying to downplay this or down, it's a threat. It's just there has to be a lot of stuff that comes together for this to actually happen. And it has happened before. Like we've seen it many times where this stuff materializes, but we also see it a lot of times where it doesn't materialize. Lansing is in the threat, yes. Any more questions, guys? Aaron, I already got your question about 5 minutes ago, bud. Cold water is in the threat for both if they materialize. Main threat for Oakland County is, well, first and foremost, there is all hazards possible, but it's conditional on if the second round. I'll go ahead and go over the synopsis here before I hop off one more time for you guys who are just joining. So first and foremost, we do have a marginal risk in place from the SPC. It's a low-end risk. Marginal is level 1 out of 5. So it's not a high risk at all, but it is a risk nonetheless. A lot of our tornadoes or damaging winds, they do happen on slight risk days and also marginal risk days. So never downplay a risk just because it's only a level 1 or a marginal risk. So with that being said, your individual hazards are as follows. This is your wind risk, a bit further south than what the marginal has. The marginal is mainly for hail up to that 96 corridor from Grand Rapids to Lansing to Detroit. This is just your wind risk, a bit further south, just north of the 94 corridor there. And then areas to the further north there under that hail risk up to Grand Rapids, Lansing, and Detroit. And then your tornado risk is going to be conditional on how that second round plays out. I'll get into that in a second here. But here is your areas for tornadoes. Again, just north of that 94 corridor. And that's conditional on two things happening. Number one, the squall line. I'll go ahead and get my model back up here so I can show you guys this. This squall line that moves in right here in Illinois, if that goes south of us, we'll have to kind of watch two things. How far north the warm front can advance after this line moves through tomorrow afternoon. And also number two, how the atmosphere is going to recover behind this line. If the atmosphere recovers and the warm front lifts north, at that point, we have a risk for all hazards in Michigan, all the way up to that 94 corridor, just north of 94 corridor. We just went over the map there. So if you're in that green risk, that's going to be the highest. But if that warm front stalls to the south, then again, second round doesn't exist. Tina, these systems actually do tend to gravitate north a little bit, which is also kind of why we're more so concerned. If it does gravitate north, then at that point, we're going to have to watch it extremely closely because the environment to the southwest in Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio does concern us for all hazards. So the further north that gets is definitely going to be something to keep an eye on for sure. First round is going to be 10 a.m. to about 2 p.m., depending if you're on the west side or the east side of the state. And also, don't be shocked if you hear thunder overnight tonight. There is a risk for thunderstorms, but they're going to be not severe until we get to that 10 a.m. time frame. But again, that's also dependent on if this squall line down here does track further north. We see it all the way here in central Illinois, all the way through Missouri. That may track to our south. If it does, not really a threat there. Maybe some small hail, a lot of lightning, but gusty wind threat would remain to our south. But up here on the northern extent, we do sometimes get what we call an MCV on these types of things, which can locally enhance wind shear, lift, just overall strengthen the storm. So we do have some concern for the 10 a.m. time frame, especially for West Michigan there. But overall, their 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. time frame is for this line, and then secondary line would be after 4 p.m. if it does materialize. Yeah, you'll be having updates from us all day tomorrow. We'll post probably the SPC Outlook maybe as early as it comes out. If I'm up, I'll post it at 2 a.m. But we will go live probably tomorrow morning sometime between 9 and 11 a.m. If anything does go to severe, I'll be here tracking it for you guys. So I'll be here in the morning hours, and also we'll just probably go live multiple times throughout the day to kind of explain how it's looking. Hopefully we're talking about a downtrend, but if we have to talk about severe, we will talk about it. If you're new to the page, just pay attention to our page. We'll be posting updates all day on how it's materializing and what you guys should be doing to take your precautions and stuff like that. Also, all warnings that get issued, if any do get issued, tornado warnings, severe warnings, also watches, they'll be posted automatically to our page. So you can always check our page as well. Those do load in automatically now through automated services. Yeah, there's the avocado. Yep. For those of you not familiar, we call the enhanced risk and a slight risk, we call it like an avocado because just the coloration of it just kind of looks like an avocado. First round, 10 a.m., 2 p.m., second round after 4 p.m. Any more questions, guys? Cold water is in the threat, Aaron. Look for your first round around 10 to 11 a.m. in the morning. And then if there's going to be a second round, look for it after 4 p.m. All right, so going over everything once again, and we'll go ahead and hop off here. So we do have an SPC marginal risk, which is right here on your screen, dark green. If you're in the lighter green up here further north, that's just a general thunderstorm risk. The dark green is your marginal level 1 out of 5, so it's a low-end risk, but it's a risk nonetheless. Individual hazard areas within that marginal risk is number 1, hail. That extends all the way north to the 96 corridor, just south of Grand Rapids. It includes Lansing. It also includes Pontiac and Detroit. And then we also have a wind risk a little bit further south of that. It cuts off just about maybe 20 miles or so. And then also the tornado risk is going to be there as well for the almost exact same areas here, all the way from Detroit all the way over to South Haven. No, there's going to be potentially 2 rounds with this. Round 1, 10 a.m., 2 p.m., although that may shift to our south. We'll have to keep an eye on that very closely. We do see the line forming out here in Illinois. It just looks to barely brush the very southern portions of the state here. That will carry mainly a hail risk, but also a gusty wind risk, definitely possible with that line if it comes further north. Not really concerned about tornadoes with that line at all. It looks to be pretty much elevated with mainly just a lack of instability there going on. Then if that line moves through quick enough and we clear out, we get sunshine, we get a lot of moisture returning from our south, at that point we talk about a second round after 4 p.m. And that is the time frame we look for all hazards, including tornadoes, wind, and hail in the risk areas we just went over a little bit ago. If that's the case, we may see a few severe storms, particularly in the southern part of the state here. The NAM model has it pretty well forecasted here, like right here. I'll go ahead and zoom in for you guys. We expect a line of storms to fire up if this were to happen, if the atmosphere recovers. It looks something like this. We'll have individual cells here lining up down to our south, all the way up into southern Michigan, and those would carry all hazards with them potentially. 2 fail modes with this. Number 1 being the warm front stalls to our south. We need that warm front to go into Michigan, so we're in the warm sector. The warm sector is destabilization, instability goes up. Without that warm front, we don't have a severe threat. Second round is more concerning in terms of threat-wise. The first round, I think, is more of a guaranteed lock to get in terms of storm potential. But overall severe threat, I think, would be highest with the second round, just given we have better wind shear there. And some of the wind shear we do have is quite interesting. So if we get a good surge of instability in the Michigan, it's going to be interesting. But again, it's very conditional. That second round is very conditional. All right. With that being said, guys, I'm going to hop off here. Again, your SPC Outlook is all posted on our page, including Our thoughts is pinned to the featured area on our page. So feel free to check that out. We'll go live again tomorrow morning to discuss this, and we'll go live if there's any severe weather in the state also tomorrow morning. With that being said, I will be out of here, and thank you guys for watching, and stay safe.